You just put it on YouTube.
I'm putting it right now, as we speak.
But I see, I don't know how that works, but I just saw it come up on the screen.
Yeah, live on YouTube, yeah. Yeah, so it's doing its magic now. Yeah. It's doing its magic now. Okay.
There's a little delay there.
I think so.
I heard your voice and then I heard it again.
Yeah.
Are we learning the second sicha in Nitzavim?
Yeah. Second one.
Be right back.
Give it always a few minutes after the time, and then we start. Session.
We're getting old.
The freezer. Store.
Oh, yeah.
Think.
Right now.
1 minute and we'll start.
What?
Use it for banking.
Yeah.
That's the page.
Yeah, that's the page. Should open to the page.
No, I see something. Okay, I think we can start. This is Chelik Yudalad, the sicha based to Parshat Nitzavim. This is a Rashi sicha, with the Rebbe standard style, the way the Rebbe explains the Rashi. Rashi b'perusha ala posik. Rashi, when he explains the posik where it says, Tapchem, Nesheichem, the Gercha, Shebekerev Machnecha, Mechete Vitzech L'Shevemecha. In other words, the posik starts with, Atem Nitzavim Ayem Kulchem, you are standing today all in front of me, and who's the all? So the posik mentions, Tapchem means your children, your little children, the sheichem, your wives, the ger chasha bekerev machnecha, and the ger, the convert that's in your machne, from the wood choppers to the water drawer, those that draw water. That's the posik. Maitik, so Rashi copies, brings in the keppel, in the heading, in the dibra maschel, hatev, just the words, meichete veitzecha. And the posik says, some of the people that were there were the people who were wood choppers. When Mefarish and Rashi says, Melamed, every word in Rashi always, as we learn, when you learn Rashi, every word is important. Melamed Rashi says, this teaches us, Shabo Knanim Liizgai B'mei Meishe, that Knanim came in the time of Meishe Rabbeinu. Obviously, they came to Meishe. They came to be Megayer. They wanted to be Megayer. Kederech Shabo Giveinim B'mei Yeshua, like the Giveinim, which is also from Eretz Canaan, came at the time of Yeshua. We know we learned in Tanakh and Yeshua that there was a certain nation, the Giveinim. They were afraid of the Eden. So what they did was they came, they disguised themselves, and they made themselves look as if they're coming from a far away place. And they came to Yeshua, and they asked that they want to convert, and they accepted them. And later they found out that these are liars. What they did was they really were from Eretz Canaan, and they came and cheated them. And there was a whole discussion what they should do with them. But Lepel, what they did was, the Yeshua made them Yeshua made them that they should be second-class citizens. They should be the wood choppers and the water carriers. So here, who is the wood choppers here? So Rashi says this teaches us that Knaanim came to be Megayer in the time of Moshe, Kederech Shabo Giveinim B'mei Yeshua, like the Giveinim came time of Yeshua. That's what it says by the Giveinim in Tanakh. It says, Vayasu Gam Heima Bormo. They also did it. Bormo Orma means with cheating. They also did. What mean they also? Because it happened the time before. It happened already by Moshe Rabbeinu. The Nosna Moshe made them wood choppers and water carriers, water drawers. That's the Rashi. The Kosva Meforshim, the Meforshim write, Shekavonas Rashi, that what Rashi means, exactly like it says in Tanchum in Medrash. In other words, what Rashi says is actually written in Medrash, and Rashi is basically taking it from Medrash, and Rashi means what the Medrash, the same thing the Medrash says. What does the Medrash say? Malamed, this teaches us, Shabo HaGiveinim Eitzel Moshe, that the Giveinim came to Moshe, V'lei Kiblon, and Moshe Rabbeinu did not accept him. Shnemer, it says, V'yasa Gam Heima Borma, it says, brings the same posik, that by Yeshua it happened, it says it happened, they also did it, is a similar that happened before. So what did it happen? Same thing happened by Moshe Rabbeinu. Mao Gam Heima, what does the posik mean by Yeshua? They too did it. The Lamb of the teacher Shabo Eitzel Moshe, that by Moshe it also happened. V'lei Kiblon, and Moshe Rabbeinu did not accept them. Hainu, that means, according to the Medrash, the Tanchume, Moshe did not make a covenant with them. Moshe, when they came, Moshe didn't accept them into Klal Yisrael, weren't Gerim. Moshe just made them like servants, he accepted them to be amongst the Eden, but they became the low-class people. They were wood choppers and water carriers. They were remained avodim to Eden. They were servants to the Eden. But the Rebbe doesn't learn like these Meforshim, that Moshe Rabbeinu did not accept it. Because when Rashi adds a few words and skips on the Tanchuma, he writes, Shabo Knanim lehizgaya, they came to be Megaya. In Tanchuma, it doesn't say that. Umashmid hakosav Tanchuma shalekib Moshe. And Rashi skips the word that Moshe did not accept them. Muchach, that proves, Shaleshitas Rashi b'pshuta shlamikra Rashi imshat, Kiblo Moshe when his guy bepel. That Moshe did accept them. Because if Moshe didn't accept them, then why would they say they came to his guy? What's the difference? They came to his guy. Actually, in Ha'orah 7, the Rebbe says, V'ein lema, you can't say Shakavon Sherak Bo his guy. Maybe Rashi says they came to be Megayah. But doesn't mean that Moshe accepted them. That's what they wanted. Maybe that's what it means. Avo bepel leis gaira. Maybe bepel they were not Megayah. But the Rebbe can be. Ki im kaini sofa stable is gayer. Yuteres lagamre. Why was the gay that they came to his guy? If Moshe didn't, the gear doesn't happen. What they had in mind, who cares? Moshe didn't accept them. So why does Rashi have to say they wanted to be Megayah? So you can't say they wanted to and it didn't happen. So we have to say that Rashi learns that they were Megayah, that Moshe accepted and they were Megayah. And that's why Rashi doesn't say like the Tanchume lei kiblo. Okay. We have to understand. How do we talk and know that they were Megayah? Rashi seems to be saying that, but where does Rashi get it from? Seems to be contrary and opposite. One thing is for sure. Rashi seems to be saying they're not regular Yidden. How does Rashi know that? Maybe they're regular Yidden, and their job was to chop wood and carry water. But Rashi knows it's not. Why? The fact that Torah makes it in a separate category, it's not included in the words Kolish Yisrael. The Pasuk says all the Yidden. So why isn't Negaya to know what job they had? And it's the carpenter. I mean, what is Negaya? So the fact that the Torah makes it a separate category besides Kol Bnei Yisrael is that they were not regular Yidden. So the same way Rashi knows that they were not regular Yidden because they're not, because otherwise they would have been included in Kol Yisrael. Kei muchach l'chura. So the same thing seemingly would be the proof Sheinim Gadim. They're probably not Gadim either. Because he counts Gadim separately. Geir Chosha v'keref machnecha. The Gadim are there, and they're separate in the Gadim. Assuming that they're not Gadim. Okay, mefurish repirish Rashi atzma b'Gemara. Rashi in Gemara learns like that. Rashi says that mida korinu l'cheit ve'etzim ban payu. Since the pasuk counts these people who chop the wood in a separate category, Shema me'or avnei Yisrael ninu v'lablecha Gadim ninu. Gadim v'chulu. Arai, they're not Gadim either. So from Rashi, so l'chure. Where Rashi says in Gemara, which seems pshuta shel mikra, the fact that they're counted, mentioned separately, so they're not Gadim. So where does Rashi get that they're Gadim? That's one kasha. And the second kasha, Ma'i kavonas Rashi because melamed shebot nanim. Why does Rashi say the pasuk teaches us that the Knanim came to Mizgayed and Mesha made them into Chet Veitzim and Sheva Mayim? But they come to the pasuk. Rashi doesn't say Knanim boil is Gayed. If Rashi wants to explain the pasuk, who were these Chet Veitzim? Rashi should have said, these are Canaanim that came to Mizgayed, and Moshe made them Chet Veitzim. What does it mean? The Pasuk teaches us that, as if the Pasuk is trying to, Rashi learns that the Pasuk is trying to tell you the story. Why did he say that? You should say proportion. Rashi should explain what the Pasuk is. And if you look back to Tanchumen also says the Loshem Alamed. But that doesn't bother the Rebbe. Rashi only copies Lashenas from Medrash or from Chazal, wherever it is, the way it's in Pshuta Shel Mikra. You see from this Gufa, Rashi is bringing it from Tanchumen and learns the opposite of Tanchumen. Tanchumen learns they were not Mizgayed, and Rashi learns they were Mizgayed. It says in Tanchumen, Tanchumen is Derech Hadrush. It's Medrash. Rashi is Derech Hapshat. He could take things from Medrash, but it has to fit to Pshat. So why does Rashi write, Melamed, that this pasuk teaches us they came? He should have said, this is what happened. This is who they are. Gimel, the third kasha, Loma Maitik, Barai Mashakosik Yeshua Yasak Amhemo. When Rashi brings the raya from Yeshua, and it says that they also did it, proves that they had done it once before. Why does Rashi bring also Gam Teves Ba'orma? To look back at the Rashi says that this is what it says by the Gebeine V'Yaseh Gam Hemo Ba'orma. If he just wants to bring a posik where we see that it happened once before, he should have said V'Yaseh Gam Hemo. And it's talking about the Gebenim. So he should have said, it says by the Gebenim, they also did it. It's a raya that it happened before. Why does Rashi also bring the pasuk from there, ba'orma, which means by cheating, by tricking? What's it in here? So the Rebbe says like this. Habir calls that the explanation is like this. The pshuta shel mikra muchach shechet ve'itzecha v'achev v'mecha v'chelik me'am Yisrael. One thing is for sure that they are Yidden. They are certain, definitely Yidden. All chet ve'itzecha shev v'mecha. How do we know? Because right after that, after he says you are all standing, and he gives the list of who they are, including so he says then he continues that all these people that we just mentioned, what did I bring you for? I made you all come stand here. I brought you here to make you go through a covenant with Hashem. Hashem is making with you today. This was a covenant that they will keep the mitzvahs. And this is a covenant with all those mentioned before. And amongst the mentioned before is the wood choppers and the water carriers. That proves must be that these people who fall in the category of or they're part of regular Yidden, or they're part of the Gadim. If they're not either, what if they would be just avodim? Moshe took him, didn't megaya them, and took him. They're not Yidden in any form or shape. Eilam shayches al pederech hapshat. They have no connection. Lavel b'brisha kol mitzvahs. Moshe was making a covenant to do all the mitzvahs. They are not shayches to all the mitzvahs. The Mela, why would they fall into this category? Why would he include them in the bris that he made? So if you see when he said al derech hapshat, he says because al derech halacha. Look at the Rakachover. He says that could be explained as derech halacha, but Rashi is not derech halacha. Rashi is derech hapshat, and derech hapshat means simply the way you see from Chumash. See from Chumash, he made a bris to keep all the mitzvahs with all the categories mentioned before, including them chet eitzim shev mayim. Means they're Yidden. The kim shekain. Now, if they're Yidden, now they could be either regular Yidden, either Gadim. There's nothing else. So which one is it? So the Rebbe, since we know for sure that they are Yidden, makes sense that they're Gated. Why? Number one, you see, when the Torah uses the Loshen by Gadim, the similar Loshen is used in the Gay of them. Sugim elu v'geir chasher b'kerev machnecho, mechete v'tzech hashem v'mecho, nemru kulam b'loshen yochid. So when it talks about the ger, it says ger cho asher b'kerev machnecho loshen yochid. Your ger, not plural. Ger chem. He says ger cho and machnecho. And by this chete, it also says chete v'tzecho sheiv v'mecho. It's loshen yochid. It's all in singular term. But all the other categories before, Shabo Loshen Rabbim, become Loshen Rabbim. Tapchem, the Sheichem. So that's Loshen Rabbim. And this is by Gerim is Loshen Yochid, and by these people Loshen Yochid. So that's one similarity, so it makes sense. But the main thing is, I guess, the second one. Mesignen Loshen, the way the Loshen is, there's with a mem. It doesn't say, like he says, Tapchem, the Sheichem, Gerim, v'chete v'tzecha, v'shevim mecha, and chete. Then it will be another category. Since he says Gerim, the Gerim from chete v'tzecha to shevim mecha. Muchach, that proves shemamshich v'zel lefarish protim, that these are details. B'mashakosav lifnei zeh v'ger chasher b'kerev machnecha. These are details in what it said before. He says Gerim, and as if he is explaining which Gerim from chete v'tzecha to shevim mecha. The imleikein. If it wouldn't be that these are details in the Gerim, another carry for some reason, another category, not Gerim, should have said the same Loshen as before. Should have said they're categories. And since he says it with a mem, meh, ad, and it comes after the word Gercho, means that Gercho, in the Gercho, from amongst the Gerim, from this category to this category. Al derech mashakos. If he gives an example, it says that the Eibishter is going to kill kol pcher be'eretz Mitzrayim, any firstborn in Mitzrayim, mei pcher para yeshev akise at pcher hashivcha. From the pcher of para, means that from the top of the para who sits on the crown, on the kisei, till the pcher of a shivcha. Shehei protov shel kol pcher be'eretz Mitzrayim, and never lipneze. So the posuk says kol pcher. And then when he says may, is all details in Pcheir. First he says the general rule, all the Pcheirim in Mitzrayim. Then he says, who are they? From the top to bottom. That's how he said in English also. This and this, from top to bottom. And another pasuk it says, Hagneva, that you have to pay back if you steal something. Misher at chamer aseh, from an ox to a donkey, to a seh, to a sheep. And it all is details in the word Gneva. Whatever you stole, from a share all the way down to a set, whatever it is. So we see that when it says me, it's details in what it says before. So obviously, when the Torah says, these are details in Gedim. So we know like this. One thing we know, there must be Yidden who are chai b'mitzvahs. Now in Yidden Gufa, which category of Yidden? They must be category of Gedim. So this is a category of Gedim and that's why they were part of the bris that the Rebbe made with them. Now, the Gabe Derayas the Rebbe brings, I'm not going to go through, but the other 13, the Rebbe said, it's not exactly the same like those psukim, but generally speaking, this is the way the Seder in the psukim is. When it says a word, and then it says in that word, may ad, means that there are categories in. So we know that these people were categories in Gerim. But according to that, we have to understand. Why did the Torah specific mention these Gerim? And he takes it out like separate. Besides saying Gerim, he mentions them separately. If they're Gerim, they're part of Gerim. Should have said Gercho, the Gerim, that's it, which includes all the Gerim. Pshita, for sure, the Enko Salka Daitech Leitzim and Aklam is asked about Vedas Kosher Selo. For sure, you can't say, well, he mentions them separately because they worked in a very hard job. Why would that be a category? Because they had a special hard job. So you must say, must be for some reason, even though they're part of Gerim, but they are a separate category. Okay, so special type of Gerim. Moving Gamkin, another Nakuda we have to understand. We understand that this specific category, this separate category of Gerim, Nischadish, was just happened, new, it must have happened not long before when Moshe said not atem nitzavim. This is something that happened, that this came up as a special category, and they just came now. And that must be pshat. Why? The imloiken, if not, if this is a category of Gedim that were always amongst Yidden, how will they lefared b'teira, din sug zeshel Gedim, become a mekemis lifneze, sheniskru Gedim b'teira. Should have mentioned every time the Torah mentions that this and this din also for Gedim, and if this is a separate category of Gedim that existed all the time, and we see here that he mentions it separately, obviously because it's a separate category, why doesn't he mention it before? Wherever he mentions Gedim, should have mentioned Gedim and then because it's another category of Gedim. So obviously, this category did not exist before. So it must have been something that happened, that this category came into Yidden at close to this time when Moshe Rabbeinu said Atam Nitzavim. That's why Rashi says, since we find a chover, the Rebbe quotes in quotations because that's the lashon of Rashi. Rashi, when he says a certain pshat, which is like a chidush, Rashi, if he finds another place where shows the same thing, Rashi is happy. He always bring the other place. So here Rashi says, yeah, I found another place. Legedim is miyuchad Yeshua. I found another place where we also find Gedim, but they're a special category of Gedim. Mistaber, that makes sense. That the category that happened by Moshe was similar to the ones that happened by Yeshua. Hainu, that the reason why these people were Megayer and the way it happened must be similar to the way it happened to Yeshua. And what happened by Yeshua? Why did this Gedim come? Why did this Gibeonim come? Because the Yidden were ready to conquer the land. They got scared, and they came telling them, we want to join you, etc., etc. So same thing happened in the time of Moshe, but when? The Yidden were getting ready to enter Canaan. To conquer it. Same thing, just like then when Yeshua was coming, they came. Here also, Bo Ozaknanim came Knanim, Leis Gayer, to be Megayer, Bechlal Yisrael, be part of Klal Yisrael. These move on, so that we understand. When did they come? Shabol is Gayer, Erev, because some letters Knan, before they went there, it's Knan, so the Knanim got scared. But Akos Nischadesh Sug Zeshel Gedim, and only then became this new category of Gedim. That's why it's only mentioned here as a separate category, because it only happened now. And it mistaber makes sense because we find similar things someplace else, and there it happened for a reason, and the same reason applies here. So it's only mistaber that's how it happened. But Daina in the movement, the Rebbe still not understood. My nafkemina eze siben is gairu. So this answers when they became a separate category, and that's why we count them as a separate category. But let's start thinking. So they just came now, but why are they a separate category? It doesn't answer why it's a separate category. We see that this category happened now because they're not mentioned before, and we know why it happened. But we still don't understand why would the Torah care how they became Gedim. How they sof Gedim. They're Gedim, Kechola Gedim. They're turned to Gedim, like all the Gedim. So why do they care? Taka counted. So they came and they were Megayer now. They weren't Megayer 35 years before. They were Megayer now. Fine, but they're still Gedim. So why aren't they included in Gedim? Why do you have to mention them separately? Now you can't say, L'churi might say, because we might think they're not gated. So the Pasuk has to tell you they are gated. So the Rebbe can't say that. The Ezetam, Yeshnu, L'kasalka, why would you think so? Why would you think that they're not gated? If you wouldn't mention it. If they came to be Megayah, why would you think Moshe Rabbeinu didn't accept them? So the Rebbe says, because they became then Yala Leidas, they are Gedim. We would think that they're not part of Gedim. Why would they not be part of Gedim? We know for sure they are part of Gedim because the Torah says that they're part of the Krisos Bris. So they are Gedim. So if they are a Pale and they came, what would make us think that they're not Gedim? If they came to Moshe Rabbeinu Megayah, why would you think, even though they came Moshe Rabbeinu Megayah, maybe they're not Gedim, and the Torah has to tell you they're Gedim? Now in the order, the Rebbe says, we could learn the order now, maybe just go through fast. You might be able to say, maybe you could have said, that maybe these Kananim, even though they were Megayer, the Isser of not letting them marry into Klal Yisrael still applies. Because the Torah says that you should not let the Kananim go into Klal Yisrael. So even though they were Megayer, maybe you can't let them in. The Isser, when it says the Abish said to kill all the Kananim, doesn't apply to them. Rashi says in Shaftim, if they were Megayer, they did tshuva, you could keep them. But nevertheless, maybe you could keep them and you let them be gay, but you can't marry them. Because there's a separate posting like Schatenbo. And it makes sense to say that. Oh, first of all, why was Moshe able to take him? Because like Rasha says, the din is if they want to be Megaya, you could accept them. That's number one. But besides that, because the Churad, what the Rebbe is answering him, it says like you can't allow any Knanim to live. How did Moshe take him in and let him live? So the Rebbe says, because Rashi explains that it's only if they're not Megaya, but if they're Megaya, you can. That's why Rashi could take him. And besides that, the chiyuv of Leisachaya Kol Neshama, you can't let them live. The Apipshat, this chiyuv is Rakish Shekorav Aliri only when you're going into fighting. There wasn't fighting. They came before the fight. So lechatchila, there's no isur even Leisachaya Kol Neshama on them. And that's how Moshe took him. But maybe Leisischatenbom, they shouldn't be able to marry in Klal Yisrael. Maybe that stays. And therefore, they're a separate category. The Taka gave him, but maybe they're a separate category because of that. And one of the rayas that you could think maybe that they were not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, it's proven from this, but where it says, don't let them live, Rasha says, but if they do tshuva, they're Megaya, you could let them live. Where it says, don't marry them, Rasha doesn't say it. Afterwards, by Leisachaya Kol Neshama, he says it, but not by Leisachatnbo. Maybe Rashi doesn't have to say it twice. Rashi says it once, and it means both. Rashi could sometimes write something and later not repeat it because he wrote it already. But you can't say Rashi doesn't write something and writes it later and expects you to know what he's going to write later. That's what Rashi does. So since Rashi didn't write by Leisachaya Kol Neshama, that it doesn't apply if they're Megayer, so it's very possible to say that even if they're Megayer, in Derech Hapshat, you can't marry them. And B'meila, that would answer the kasha. That's why they are a separate category. And that could have answered why they're mentioned separately. Because we might think that they're not included in Gercho. There's no, you can't marry them, and B'meila, they're not included. But the Rebbe says you can't say it. Abal Eina, you can't say it. That the reason why Rasha doesn't mention it there is not because of it, not because the Isser is still there. There it's self-understood. By Leisachaya Kol Neshama, Rasha has to say, because I wouldn't know that. Rasha has to explain it. But here it's obvious that if they're Megaya or not. Why? Rasha never explains why. Leisachaya it says, why should you not let them live? In order for you not to learn from them. So the whole reason is because you might learn from them bad ways. It has to be the only time you can let them live if it's vadai that you're not going to learn from them. And even if they do tshuva, you don't know what's going on in their heart. You don't know. Maybe they're still bad. So you would apiseichel have a havamina that even if they do tshuva, you can't let them live. Because as long as you're not sure that they're not going to influence you, you can't let them live. That's why Rasha has to tell you that it's not so. Not true. If they're Megaya, you could let them live. Because when it says don't marry them, it says because he will take away your child. When can't you do it? When you know for sure that he'll take away your child. But if you did tshuva, maybe not. So you're not sure. Over there, you have to be sure that you won't learn from him. And here you have to forget. The Isser is only if you're sure that that's going to happen, the bad thing. And if he's a Megaya, at least we're not sure it's going to happen. But Meile, Rasha doesn't have to say it. So the bottom line, the Rebbe says that Leises Chatenbaum doesn't apply to them. You could marry them. So there's nothing different between these Gerim and the regular Gerim. So the kasha is, why does the Pasuk mention them separately? If they're regular Gerim, so there's no reason to mention them separately. So we have a raya that they came, we have a raya that they were Megayer, all's good. But the kasha is, why does the Pasuk mention it separate? That's why Rashi starts off, the Pasuk is telling it to us to teach us something, to teach us this Maisa, to teach us that if not for this, we'd never know the whole story. We'd never know part of history, part of what the Torah wants you to know, that this Maisa happened, that they came to Moshe Rabbeinu to be Megayer. So the Pasuk is telling it you to teach us. And he continues, that this happened the same way it happened when the Gevenim came to Yeshua. Kolaimer, what it means is, the fact that the Torah brings them into a separate category. Kavanosa, the meaning of the kavan of the Torah is lelamdeinu, to teach us, lesaper lonu, to teach us, asher bo knanim lizgayer b'memesha, that the Knanim came to be Mizgayer. And it's only a remes, but kama v'kama inyonim leomra Torah b'mfurish el b'remes. A lot of times the Torah wants to tell us certain things, and it only tells it to us in a remes. Doesn't say clearly. The Torah tells us all kinds of stories. The Torah wants us to know. Torah wants us to know this also. So sometimes the Torah tells us outright the whole story. Some Torah makes a remes. So the Torah wrote this to teach us that we should know this story. That's why Rashi, the kasha was the Rebbe. Rashi should have said, "Who are these chayt and gives the Knanim Megayah?" Because if that would be the reason, the Torah wouldn't mention it. Because what's the difference? They gave him. So that's why Rashi says, "Lamet." But it's not so simple. That in these few words, the Torah's maramis with a few words on a story, it's a major story. That the Knanim came to the Megayer and Moshe accepted them. So it's not so simple. I mean, that we could see that, but it's not so simple. Rashi adds another ayah. We see it from there that it says that they did also. That shows that there was already a time that this happened. Behind the time of Moshe, Shabo Knanim Nizgayer, also from Nizgayer, and it fits. Just like it says here, that these were the people who were the wood choppers and the wood throwers and the wood carriers. But there it also says, that Yeshua made them gave them this job, and they became the second-class citizen, but they were Yidden, they were Megayer. So we have here the extra thing that the Torah makes them a separate category. Together with the pasuk over there where it says Gam Heimo, between the two, Mizbarer, that makes it clear. He found the special type of gators this happened. We understand the kavanah. Why the Torah writes it as a separate category? Because the Torah wants to tell us a story. But you still could ask a kasha. It's a kasha that's not really right now. A kasha that will happen later on when someone will come to learning something else. So the Rebbe says when the Talmud who learns Rashi will come to learn what happened by the Gevenim, Shemetzayne Rashi refers to it. In other words, maybe it's not only the Talmud. Eventually, you learn Chumash and then you learn Nach and you'll tell the story. If he's a good Talmud, and Rashi says, like the story of the Gevenim, and he quotes a pasuk, a good Talmud, what will he do? Let's look up the pasuk. I always tell the Bachrim in Yeshiva, when Tosfos brings up a Gemara of someplace, the first thing to open that Gemara, look it up. So you would look it up. And when you look up the story by the Gevenim, you'll find the story, it'll seem to you the opposite. You'll see from there that it did not happen in time of Moshe. Basically, that the first time it happened was in the time of Yeshua. How will we see it? If already happened time of Moshe, gave him Megayer, it says in Tanakh that after Yeshua accepted them, the Nisim accepted them, all the Eden had a whole argument with the Nisim. They claimed to them that you did wrong. We have to kill them. They cheated us. They told us they wanted to be Megayer. That's not true. They came because they were afraid. Lepel, they didn't kill him. They left them. The reason is because Chil Hashem, if they would kill him. But Lepel, we see that they complained. Why did you do that? If it's true that it happened time of Moshe Rabbeinu, they did the right thing. They did exactly what Moshe did. Another thing, not only why did they complain, but even if they did complain, the people complain. But Yeshua should have answered, what do you want? Look, by Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe did the same thing. I'm doing the exact same thing. And since he didn't answer that, is that ayah that it did not happen before in Moshe's time. So what Rashi sends us to the Sorry Gevenim as a ayah that it happened, it'll be a ayah opposite. Yashem zeh, to answer that kasha, maitik Rashi kam tevis v'yasek am hema ba'ormo. The Rashi also quotes the pasuk, the last word of the pasuk, ba'ormo. The kasha that why isn't the gay ba'ormo? Just wants to show that it happened before. They came ba'ormo. They lied. Doesn't say they came saying that we're coming from a far place and we wanted and they cheated. They came clearly and they probably said the truth. Doesn't say not. They came and they said, we're Knanim. I know you're going to attack us and we'd like to join you. Basically, we're surrendering to you and we're becoming Eden. What's wrong with that? The kavana gluya, with the clear kavana. You can't say, well, you should learn from Yeshua, from Moshe that Yeshua should do the same. That's why the people argue by the time of the Gevenim. Yeshua could not say Moshe did. They'll say very simple. When they came and they said the truth, we accepted them. When they lied, we can't accept it. And that was the and nevertheless, Yeshua did accept it. He kept him. But we see why they argued and he couldn't answer this. Now, Hora 19, the Rebbe says like this. If you look in Yeshua, what Rashi says, Yeshua Pirish Rashi, when it says Gam Hema, so here Rashi says, what does Gam Hema mean? They also did it, like a time of Moshe. There he says, like Shimon and Levi, when they killed Shechem, they also did Bormo. They told them to be mal, and this, and then they did Bormo. So the Rebbe says, what is Rashi? Chura doesn't stim to Rashi. So it's premise not negaya so much to the sicha because Rashi here doesn't say it. But how does it fit sof kol sof that over there Rashi teaches this way? So obviously both are true. Rashi maybe you could say like this: even the gam hema kosav be'emsa, the word gam hema is written in middle. The Parash Rashi is like this: kan and negaya lekam, whatever is negaya to our parasha, he says the koy alafonov. It says vayasu gam hema. That what does the gam hema go? The word vayasu. The beguf asiyo gam hema. That gam hema means that whatever happened here, when by Yeshua is gam, it's something that happened before. So the vayasu means what happened, what they did. And the second thing is the word after gam hema is what? Is ba'ormo. Oh, that the ba'ormo also the koy gam al achra, it goes on the second part. The be'efun asiyo gam hema. That there is another time they also something happened ba'ormo. So we're learning two things. There's something that happened, like again, something before, and this was the second time in what happened. And then there's another nakuda that what did ba'ormo is also a repeat of something. And when did the same happen ba'ormo? That's no Yaakov. From a different Rashi. So here we see how the whole Rashi fits all the details. The loan from the Chassidus in this Rashi is like this. Yadua, it says now Yem Pizgim Ad Morazokun, the word of the Alter Rebbe, Al Apostle Mechete Vitzecha Shem Mecho. It says from the wood choppers to the drawers of the water. So the Alter Rebbe teaches Eitzecho is Moloshen Eitzo, not from Loshen of wood, Loshen of Eitza. Eitza means advice, thought, thinking. Hakavone, what it means, Chete Vitzecha means chopping wood, chopping eitzes. Tzrichen Lachte V'Lahosir Eitzes. You have to chop out all your eitzes. Which kind of eitzes? People have all kinds of ideas, which means not ideas of Gedusha. Look at the end of the Pasuk. Rabbis machshavas b'lev ish, b'atzas Hashem hisokum. But people have other type of eitzes. So you have to chop out all these eitzes, which are not the eitzes of Hashem. The drawers of the water hakavana means shetzrichen lishe v'samayim ha'matzmichen kol min tanya. You have to draw out water. What does water represent? So in Tanya, in the first perek of Tanya, he says that water represents taivas, because water makes all kinds of gishmak, physical taivas, physical tainugim grow. So water is the source of the taivas. So the Mele, the Pasuk says, chop out all your eitzes, your private eitzes, that's not Eibishter's. Draw out, take out all your taivas. That's what it says in Hayemye. But if someone could come and say, what do you want from me? Maybe Yisachar, who's Yeshiv Eil, a person who sits and learns all day. The kol echad ve'echad b'limutei shalei b'teira, and everyone sits in yeshiva and learns teira. Kiyum ha-mitzvahs, avedes atfilis, a person is completely involved in ruchnis, does mitzvahs and learns davens. Then for sure, for people like that, you shouldn't mix in. It's also to mix in your all kinds of other types of thoughts. So that's a person that you could tell this advice. Which is Bali Asik Zvulun, which is represents the business people. Shosh Asik Benyon Mischa is involved in Mischa, Kelo, and also Bachilosu Shtiose. He's not involved in Kedusha always, in Ruchnias. He's involved in Gashmias, even in his eating. And that, since he's involved physical things, so you do have to get help and get involved in your machshove. When the gay you should have your tainuk. You should have tainuk in Gashmias because you're a person involved in Gashmias. And the Eibishter wants you to do the Gashmias. Not saying you're doing something wrong. Just everything that you do. So what? Who cares if I'm involved there with my cup? Because we always know what that you have to, when you do, you have to put in your hands, but not Yigia Reishcha. Famous story with the Rebbe Rashab, that one of the big Chassidim went into business and he opened the business of Kaloshin, of boots, of Galashin, and he was involved. He came to the Rebbe Rashab, asked him advice what to do. So the Rebbe Rashab looked at him and said, I heard of feet in Kaloshin. I never heard of a head in Kaloshin. So you shouldn't. But the taina is, why not? If that's that's me. From Rashi Malamed, Shabo Knanim lehisgayer. The Knanim came to me. And what's Knan? He'll say, and nos no meisha chet veitz b'sheva mayim. This chet veitz b'sheva mayim, which the Alter Rebbe says means get rid of your eitzes, get rid of your taives, was said to the Knanim. Who's Knanim? Knanim shegam Knani lifi apirish seicha. Knani means a merchant. In Hora, you have 24, you have few rayas that Knani also means a merchant, a businessman. So even the businessman, also canal, he also has to get rid of his taivas and has rid of his eitzes. Now, so he still could continue in Taina. It's very hard to reach a level that even when it comes to your physical things, you also only have to rely and to rely on the Eibusha completely, not to mix in your own machshav and your tainuk. What's the eitzah? Rasha says, but this chet veitza, who made him into chet veitza shemayim? The nosno Moshe chet veitza shemayim. Moshe made it. The Knani, which represents the business people, Moshe Rabbeinu made the business people to have the sinyan that to chop out the eitzes and get rid of the taivish. Because we know everybody has a Moshe within him. The Moshe aspect in every yid, it's a small thing. The Rebbe bases it on the Loshans in Tanya Perek Beis. He says here, there the Alter Rebbe brings the posuk where it says, the Eibusha told Moshe Rabbeinu, tell the Eden, what's Hashem asking? You used to have Yiras Hashem. And the Gemara asks, he makes it so, what's he asking? Nothing, no big deal. What do you mean, no big deal? You see the Lashon the Rebbe quotes here. The Gemara says, it's a small thing. The Gemara answers, yes, it's small. The Gaba Mesha Milsa Zutrasi, the Gaba Mesha, it's a small thing. That's the Gemara. Frag the Alter Rebbe in Tanya. But he wasn't telling it to Moshe only; he was telling it to every Yid. What's kind of answer is it? That's Gaba Moshe. What about the rest of the Yidden? So the Alter Rebbe learns Pshat. It's not the Pshat that he said, the Gaba Moshe, it's a small thing. It means the Gaba, every Yid has a Pchina of Moshe in him. And the Gaba, because of that Pchina of Moshe, it's easy to have Yiras Shamayim. So the Rebbe says the same thing here. Nos no Moshe chet veitz v'sheva mayim. Moshe made them. That means Moshe could give that kayach to Moshe Rabbeinu. Now I want to add, the Rebbe doesn't say it, but it means, the Rebbe says here, the Moshe in every person. You could say, the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation gives you the kayach to do it. I think the Toldus says that pshat in this Gemara, not like Tanya, a little bit different. In the same Gemara, that the Gemara asks, Milsa Zut, it's a small thing, and then L'Gaba Moshe. So he answers, Alter Rebbe says, yes, L'Gaba Moshe, L'Gaba the Moshe in every Yid, it's a small thing. He says like this, yes. L'Gaba Moshe, when you're connected to Moshe, Milsa Zutrisi. If you're connected to Moshe Rabbeinu of generation, then it's Milsa Zutrisi. So that's the thing here, then you could even do this. This is when you get the sicha. I just want to take opportunity a second because some people ask me, so I want to say it. Nitzavim has 3 sichas. And people ask, how do you have 3 sichas? We know that from Krach Yud to Krach Yudalad, we have each week has 2 sichas. What happened? Every week in the year Lamed Tovshin Lamed Gimel Lamed Dalad, every week came out a pamphlet. The likud for the week. So when they made it into Svarim, so each parsha has 2 because of 2 years. And actually in the front, in most of the prints, in the front of the Sefer, it tells you even each sicha which year it was printed. So it's Lamed Gimel and Lamed Dalad. Some sicha, every week, one sicha is from Lamed Gimel, one from Lamed Dalad. And it says there, where did this Nitzavim Gimel come in? How did that? And look at the front, you know what it says, which date, where it was printed? Printed Lamed Beis. Look in the front. Sicha Gimel is Tovshin Lamed Beis. Lamed Beis, look at the sichas didn't come out, the likutim didn't come out. So where is it from? So people ask me, so I'm just mentioning it now. What happened was, Tovshin Lamed Beis, the likud didn't come out. But, not the whole year, but a chelik of the year, every week, every time there was a Fabrengen, we gave into the Rebbe a keta, a shtickle kitzur of the Fabrengen or of a sicha. And the Rebbe was magir. What happened to all these sichas? Later on, when they printed the Svarim, they all went into the Hisofes. What is the Pshat Hisofes in the Kutei Sichas? Every Sefer Kutei Sichas has Hisofes. Some of them more, the Hisofes are bigger than this. So the Hisofes are any, besides there are a lot of letters which are shaykhs to the Parsha that were printed there, any Sicha that the Rebbe was Magia, that was not part of the series of the Kutei Sichas, went in someplace to be printed in the Svarim. So it's all in the Hisofes. Sometimes there were some sichas that the way it was written and the way that was magia is in the same style as the Kutei Sichas. Kutei Sichas is a certain style, a kasha or a rasha, a kasha, teretz, and a build-up. The other sichas are all kinds of different inyonim. So sometimes a sicha fits to the same style exactly as the Kutei Sichas. So I remember when the sicha of the Tzovim, Tovshin Lamed Beis, the Rebbe was magia, this sicha, and this sicha there is mamish like a regular rasha sicha, which is similar to this. So we had a whole meeting about it, and we decided the Hisofes, for some reason, is not really learned so much. Even now on the project, look at the Sichas. No, it's not the Hisofes. People look at it, you find something, but you don't learn it normal. If a Sicha goes into the regular space of look at the Sichas, it's learned more. So some Sichas, they don't fit because you could see it's a different thing. But those Sichas that do fit, so we decided that we'll put it into the sicha. So Tovshin Lamed Beis, the Rebbe was magia the sicha. It was from bringing this Tovshin Lamed Beis, the Rebbe was magia that week, and it came out separately as a sicha. But when the sefer was printed, this went to this place. Other places, other also, not too many. Others also, like in Chelik Yud, Chanukah was not part of the sichas, but the Rebbe was magia after the Fabrengen, and it's a mamish, a kasha, the Rambam, the Birus, so it went in, and that's why here we have. This is a third sicha, and it came out like a Tovshin Lamed Beis, but not in the regular series of Kutei Sichas. Anyway, just a stamp for information because a lot of people asked me, so I'm explaining it. Okay. Gute Nacht. Till next time, Bli Neder in Yirtzeh Hashem.